What's up, guys? Rogue9 here, and welcome to the Hot Breach podcast. Sorry for the slight delay. I've been hit by the infamous Windows update, and it changed all of my audio settings. Nothing worked. First Discord, and then Streamlabs. It was all over the place. But here we are now. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to my co-hosts, as always, Pete and Flanked. How's it going?
Good. Really good, thank you.
Going well. Let me take you through what we're going to talk about today. Brand new news, hot off the press. We have new streamer charms coming to Rainbow Six Siege, so we'll be talking about those a bit. And also, we've had some news. This isn't all that recent, but there was a developer blog post about the casual map pool rotation. So we'll briefly go over that and discuss our thoughts on that a little bit. There's been, if anyone's played on the test server, you might have noticed that the operator selection menu now has a target range as a background. So we're going to talk a little bit about what a practice mode in Rainbow Six Siege should look like, according to us. What would we hope to get out of it? And how could that be realized? Because I think there's a lot of people who've been asking for it, but no one's really ever defined what does the target range or a practice mode in Rainbow Six actually need to do for you. So we'll discuss that a little bit. Flanked had a really interesting video out recently. Was it yesterday or the day before about you meeting a cheater? Yes, you met a cheater. So that was a
cheater having a pint of beer.
Yeah, discussing how to win at Siege, and that was quite a well-crafted video. I like that. I like the way that was built. If anyone's not seen that, you can go and give that a watch. So we'll talk a little bit maybe about sort of that experience and cheating in Rainbow Six, especially now, not the blatant cheating, but the kind of closet cheating, the hidden cheating, the guys where you're not quite sure, like, how did he know there was no drone? Was there a call out? We'll talk about that a little bit. And then, obviously, over the weekend, we had the Ghost Recon Breakpoint beta come out. I've played that a bit. I know Flank's played that a bit. So we'll discuss our experience there just a tiny bit. Obviously, this is still pre-release, so it'll be just initial impressions, not a review of any of that kind, but we'll talk about our impression and our experiences so far. And of course, over the weekend, we also had DreamHack Montreal, a very, very interesting tournament. I mean, I've seen this from DreamHacks in the past. They're all over the place. You never quite know who can win, who can lose. Really interesting performances there. So we'll chat about that a little bit at the end. Let's get things started. So, new streamer charms. Let me show you those on stream now. Here we go. It actually worked. Thank goodness. We have 4 new charms joining the roster. Of course, all of the previous charms will be available again as well, as they always do. And this time around, we're getting Varsity Gaming, a well-known YouTube channel and Twitch streamer. Narcoleptic Nugget, equally well-known. And then we have Big Head and Xander as well. I believe Big Head is a streamer based in Asia. Not quite sure of the exact country. And I think Xander is based in Germany. So we've got those guys joining the existing roster as well. And if I understand this blog post correctly, these new charms, including the old ones, will launch with the new season and then will just be available all throughout the end of the year. So that's great to see. Obviously, you get them as you always do. You subscribe on Twitch to your favorite streamer, and then as long as your Twitch account and your Ubisoft or Uplay account are linked, then those will just show up in your charm inventory. It takes a few hours usually, but maximum I think a day or so.
How cool is Xyronix, man? That is so cool.
It's the best one. It is the best one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is my favorite. That was actually the first. Like, was he in the first rotation?
I think he was the second.
Maybe the second.
I think he was the second.
It was certainly out of the group that he was in. That was the one I went for first. It is an awesome logo. It is really good, and there are quite a few good ones in there. And I have actually, looking at them now, I have quite a lot of them. Any thoughts from you guys at all on the new guys joining us this time around?
Congrats to all of them. I've had the good fortune of being around Varsity some. He's a good dude. Definitely deserves all the credit and recognition he's getting with this. And it's really all I have to say. I mean, I think it's cool that Ubi does this, and it'll probably amount to a sizable amount of income for the people involved. I mean, there's going to be people who want that charm enough to where maybe they watch their stream occasionally, but they're going to sub, and it's really cool that for people who have, dedicated a lot of their time to streaming Siege, that they can actually get something monetarily back.
Yeah, really useful.
Yeah, I agree.
I think as well, I mean, sometimes this is also discovery partially, like there are sometimes streamers that are highlighted that I haven't ever seen of or heard of, and it brings them to the attention of people. It is really a good way of giving back. So yeah, happy to see that. Now, over to the map rotation. Now, like I mentioned right at the beginning, this is not brand new news. This was mentioned a little while ago, but we haven't had the chance to talk about this yet. So for casual, we used to have, up until now, 20 playable maps, and that is now going down to 14 with the next season, with 4 maps being rotated through, I believe it is at the mid-season, right? Yes, it is with the mid-season patch. So a bunch of maps getting dropped out at the beginning of the season, and we're going to be left with, initially, Oregon Clubhouse, Consulate Bank, Canal, the new one, Chalet, Cafe Dostoevsky, Border, Skyscraper, Coastline, Villa, Hereford, Fortress, and Outback. And then in the mid-season patch, Skyscraper, Hereford, Fortress, and Chalet are leaving us. And in return, we get House, Plain, Favela, and Tower back. Now, we've seen on Twitter a lot of people sort of seemed not all too happy with this move in general. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what you think about this. Is that, like, should we even have a rotation in casual? Isn't casual where you go to play all of the maps, where they don't need to be all that competitive? What are your thoughts in general there?
Number one hurdle to new players in this game, which, by the way, new players generally start out in casual, is going to be learning the maps. So reducing that pool even just a little bit, I believe, will help the new players. That's my number one motivation for being in support of this. The fact then they're not gone forever. It's not like they're saying, these maps are gone forever. They're coming back in on a rotational standpoint, and it allows a new player who starts playing this game on the day that the new season is released will be able to, learn the maps faster because there's less of them that they're playing through. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's.
I agree with that. Yeah, I do tend to agree with that. I mean, I can't think of, like a Machiavellian reason why they would do this. The only reason I can think is they have done this to help people. And they will be regularly rotating the maps in and out. And like Flank says, I do believe it is a big hurdle for somebody new to the game. So there's still a great deal of maps in there. It's not like they're reducing it down to half a dozen or anything like that. So there's still a lot in there. There is, no reason to think that you're going to be playing the same map over and over again. So I think, overall, it's a positive thing, really.
I think that's a really good point. It's something that sort of long-term fans of Rainbow Six underestimate, how long it takes to learn any map. And then imagine you're a new player and there are 20 maps to play and to learn. It's an insurmountable task, and you just you can't do it effectively and efficiently. Like, if you wanted to become good at all of the maps, you'd have to actually go into custom games as a spectator and just explore the maps that way. And then you're not really playing, you're doing work. And that's not the first experience that most players will want to have. It's not what most players will come up with. Like, if you're new to the game, how do you even know that when you host a custom game, when you create a custom game locally on your machine, certainly on PC, that you then can go in and spectate an empty map and roam around and look around from all angles? Most people won't even know to do that. And even if they did know, who wants to? So yeah, that is actually a really good point.
It's a chore, right?
Exactly.
Having to do that to learn the maps.
Exactly.
And there's no guarantee you'd particularly learn that much anyway. I don't know if this has changed, but I thought it was every month that they were going to put maps in and out of the casual playlist.
So
I thought it was a month.
In this blog post, it mentions mid-season. So
So I've misunderstood that.
Think about 20 maps though. Let's say a casual person plays, let's say, 4 maps per day, four matches of casual per day. That would mean in 5 days, if the cards fell right, they would have the possibility of not playing the same map twice. How are you going to learn a map and maps that are as complex as Siege under those circumstances? Because honestly, playing 4 matches, that's probably, even in casual, that's probably what, an hour and a half of time?
The counter argument to that, I guess, and I actually agree with you, but I guess the counter argument is that with the unranked playlist coming into the game, that could be the place where people will go to learn the maps as you would need to learn for, say, ranked, and then casual.
There's a clearance level barrier for unranked, though.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? I don't know what that is. Is it 20 or something like 20. That? So I guess the argument might be that casual should have all the maps that are available at any given time, and then unranked could be a great place to then go and learn the maps and become accustomed. But I'm just saying that as a counter argument because I actually agree with you.
I get you.
I mean, the counter to the counter would be where will new players gravitate to? And I think you yourself mentioned it quite rightfully that probably new players will, the first thing they do is do the situations, then they play some terrorist hunt, and then they go into casual. That's sort of the first port of call. I mean, okay, we have the beginners playlist as well, and that only has 3 maps, and it only has 3 maps on purpose, and this was actually purposefully said and explicitly said when the game mode was announced. We only have 3 maps in there to make it easier to learn, to give you a couple of maps that you can play with, that you can get into and play them again and again, rather than just having, like Frank mentioned, literally a whole play week with not even the same map twice. And how are you going to ever learn that? So yeah, there is that. I think it makes sense, and you've put forward good arguments there. One other thing that is mentioned is that Bartlett University and Theme Park will not be playable during Season 2. We spoke about this a few weeks ago, and I actually went into the test server and I checked. And certainly for Theme Park, it's not playable in T-Hunt, and it's not even playable in custom games. So you can't even set up a 10-man custom, go in and play Theme Park. Theme Park is gone once the new well, it's certainly for the season. Obviously it's getting reworked and it's going to drop with the next season, but you're not going to be playing it at all, not in Terrorist Hunt, not in customs, not at all in the run-up to the release of the reworked map.
You have played your last time on the old theme park. It's
pretty
done
much,
until the new one comes. Yeah.
That's crazy. That to me sounds that to me screams space. You know, we talk about that a lot on this podcast of them saving space, but I can think of no other explanation other than space for them to just straight up remove it from T-Hunt and everything.
We talked about this a little bit, I think, off air at some point, because I remember having this conversation with you, Rogue, about space and the casual playlist, but those maps are still in there for T-Hunt, right? So
Bartlett is still in for T-Hunt, yes.
Because I would kind of understand it a bit more if they said, right, those are the 14 casual maps until we put the other ones in. They're like patched out of the game. You can't even play them on T-Hunt, but they're still in there, so it's not even to save space. I mean, it genuinely is, because they've discussed for a long time now about the hurdle of joining Siege and what it takes to learn the game, and how they can, take action to minimize that and make it as easy as possible to start to learn, not make the game overall easy, because, it's good that there is a learning curve, but we obviously want to give people a bit of a helping hand getting there. So I really do think it is, as said, to help people.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything sinister behind it.
A learning curve that sort of gradually slopes upward is fine. A learning wall that just sort of hits you in the face, that's not what we want. And yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers to getting into Siege is those first few hours. And in fact, this is publicly available information. The biggest churn that the game sees, like players who drop the game and never come back, happens within the first 15 hours. If you make it through the first 15 hours, then you're more likely to get into the game and continue playing it and become better. And the better you get, the more you start enjoying it. And then you have a chance at getting into Siege and starting to get to the point where this game becomes so fascinating and enjoyable. But it's that first 15 hours that's critical, because, like I mentioned, players go through the situations, they play a bit of T-Hunt, and then they get into their first few matches and they get absolutely clattered. And they put it down sometimes, many times, and don't come back. So
that's why I'm a really big advocate of absolutely smashing newbies on the free weekends. You have to let them know what this game is all about. And if they want to stay around, they need to know how to hold their own.
Oh, that's great. I mean, in all seriousness, though, we had Shadowfax on here on the podcast before, and that was the exact story that she had. And she tried the game, she played it for a few hours. It was too daunting, and then she got back into it during the Rainbow is Magic event, when it was like a more casual, the same map over and over again. And she still is in love with this game. I talk to her, I see her on Twitter all the time. This is like her main game now. So there's truth there. This is a real thing, guys.
And the maps have a lot of replayability, particularly for a new person. You play a new sort of Call of Duty map with its typical 3 lanes. You within sort of half an hour of play, you kind of know the map. You know the perches and the alleyways and where to like hold those lanes. But Rainbow Six Siege isn't like that at all. Like if you play the same map a number of times, I'm still learning stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And there is stuff that unless it happens to you, you might not even find on your own, unless you see it in a video somewhere, you see someone else doing it, or someone happens to kill you through a flaw. Like sometimes, just especially when it comes to vertical play, that is almost something you don't just happen to find. That's something you have to start exploring purposefully, whether you find it in someone's tutorial video, or whether you go into a custom game that you've set up and you just walk around as Sledge and just open up all the floors and look through and see where are the angles, where can I see, what happens if I stand here and open the floor there. There is just, it's never ending, isn't it? How long has this game been out? And I still don't think I know everything there is to know about the maps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So on to the next target. Let's get into our discussion topics a little bit. And yeah, like I mentioned, on the test server, if you go into the operator selection menu, there's a target range in the background. It looks like sort of an indoor range. There's human-shaped targets, and that's now the new background. We don't know if that means anything. There's been no announcement around this, whether that's something that is just a background, just for now, something to look at. But a target, a practice mode, a target range, a practice mode, whatever. It's been a topic that has been asked for a lot. It's been a topic that's been discussed a lot, and Ubisoft have acknowledged that they've heard us, they've heard the demands for it, and it is on their minds as well. It's definitely on the to-do list. So the question today is, what would we actually want out of a practice mode or target range? What are we hoping to get out of it as players, and what would it have to look like to achieve that? And the reason I would sort of ask that is because I saw the same exact thing happening with Battlefield 5. There was a lot of noise about we need a practice range, we need a target range, we need to be able to train, and EA went ahead and they built one and they put it out, and almost no one used it. I went on there once or twice, and it was just like, yeah, this is not teaching me anything that I don't get out of the game itself. Why am I here? And then since then, that's been it. So the question is really one of the add-on questions almost is this just something that people have gotten to a point of they think that this would be really helpful, but maybe it actually won't be? Maybe it's kind of boring to stand there and try to flick on targets. Maybe most players don't even want that, but they think they do. So let's start at the top. If there was a practice mode coming, what would you guys want out of it? What would it have to fulfill?
I think the thing with Battlefield, as far as I understand, well, at least in Battlefield 4, they had it was like free roam, and it's kind of cool way to learn vehicles, get in a helicopter and fly around. That's Battlefield 4, so we're going back a few years. I think what I would want in Siege is, because you can kind of do that free roam thing at the minute, because I've done that, whether it's T-Hunt or you could just go on Hereford base and literally practice aiming at those targets on the shooting range. I have done that, so you can do that. What I would like is a way of measuring progress. So they could give you, I don't know, like 20 targets. And I would like to be able to just have a time for how quick I take out those targets, how many missed shots I have. And I'd like different options. There are different aim training things out there on the market that PC gamers, for example, are able to go and play. I'm not sure about console, where you can go in and try and get your sensitivity as similar as possible to Rainbow Six Siege or CSGO or whatever it is, and train. And you have different routines. You could have a moving target, a static target. You could have unlimited targets, a timed session. So I would like those kind of options. One thing I did want to just really quickly ask is, has there been any official word on that image appearing on the test server?
Oh, the one in between.
Yes, the one you mentioned, the range, the target range. Or
yeah, not that I've seen. No.
Because I do find that rather odd, because they know that is something we want. Like, you and I spoke to Alex Remy in Montreal back in February, and that was something I brought up. I did an interview and put it on my channel, and he knew that was something the community were clamoring for. So it does seem odd to me that they would put that image in there just to tease us.
It's no accident. It can't be.
Yeah. So, so with T-Hunt, they've made these changes, which I do really welcome. Though I suppose to some extent, people you said to me many moons ago that people play T-Hunt that don't even play the PvP, which really shocked me. But there's some stats out there that people just play T-Hunt. But one of the things I was thinking about that, I would be happy with a T-Hunt as well, in addition to or as part of a firing range, which had unlimited AI, just unlimited AI. And maybe I want unlimited health, but tell me, I want to know if I've been shot, but maybe just let me just play it for 45 minutes, just aiming for heads and stuff like that. I don't just want to be aiming at a static wall with maybe a few moving targets. I like the idea of moving around the map as well as part of this range. So it could very much be part of a whole rework of T-Hunt for me.
All right, I think I have sound now.
Yes,
yay, there we go. So sorry, what were you saying?
My big picture with a shooting range, I want to be able to practice my aim, my movement, normal gadgets like grenades, flashes, C4s, as well as unique operator gadgets without fear of death. That's the big picture that I want from a shooting range or practice arena or whatever. One of my favorite things, which are actually removing, but I understand why they're removing it. One of my favorite things from T-Hunt is the nitro cell rooms, because you can sit in a location and just practice flicking onto those little targets. So I want something like that in a shooting range that, that allows me to, sit somewhere and just focus on my sensitivity, like flicking to unpredictable locations and try and do that. I think that's some of the best aim you can get. But also imagine just something simple where they set up, a soft floor where you can get underneath of it. You can practice throwing a grenade up at that, that really timing central thing, like a grenade, holding a grenade long enough to destroy the floor above you. That's something that takes a lot of practice. And it would be really cool to have a situation set up with that, with infinite grenades, and not have to worry about dying. Maybe it shows you how much damage you do to yourself, but you don't actually lose that damage. Imagine, something where, you could have a bullseye set up and throwing nitro cells through windows, through holes in floors, through stuff like that. And then, obviously just quick targets popping up here and there with a mixture of cover, one wall, one vertical wall, one little half wall where you're practicing crouching and going over top of things. Those are kind of like just what come to mind initially. And then if you want to go the extra mile, just give us some options in T-Hunt, like Pete was saying. I think, allow me to have infinite health, allow me to have infinite terrorists, allow me to give the terrorist headshot kills only. That would be a cool aspect to T-Hunt. Stuff like that is what I would like to see implemented.
Yeah, I think something that I would like to see in addition to all of those things you mentioned is I want the terrorists in Terrorist Hunt to not flinch. Because that's not something you see when you go into the PvP mode. You don't shoot at someone and then they suddenly duck down and they're somewhere different. It doesn't help you with practice at all. So that's something that I would like to see go away, and just have them behave like the character models in the normal PvP mode as well. And I think everything you've mentioned, Flanked, is really good. I would highlight that practicing throwables would be so useful, because when you're playing the game, even if you're in T-Hunt, you can replenish, but it takes so long because it's balanced. It's not supposed to be something quick. Maybe even in T-Hunt, we're getting a new animation for ammo retrieval. If you've tried that on the test server, you've now got the operator grabbing in and just kind of doing this motion, which is that's nice, I guess, rather than just standing there staring at it. But it's T-Hunt. Why don't we just, at least on the normal mode, make it instantaneous? Just pick it up. That's at least a halfway step towards the way.
Maybe that animation is in there for a future change.
Oh, I definitely think that's such a weird change. It's got to be implemented in some type of event or something coming.
Okay.
That's the only thing I could think.
Interesting, maybe. And it's just like, yeah, or
The pickpocket operator.
Having an option to just have unlimited grenades and to be able, because like, how many seasons ago is it that we got this new throwing mechanic that depending on your movement, your throwing arcs are different, right? If you're moving backwards, your arc will be completely different than moving forwards. If you're moving left or right, terrible things start happening. I mean, it gives you a more nuanced control, but I'm still not used to it. Like, if I tried the number of times I would try to throw a flash grenade through a window while strafing and it'll just bounce off the wall in front of me, it still happens. Because you don't get enough practice while playing the game normally. So yeah, fully echo that. The ability to practice your gadgets, that's really good. And the movement, maybe something like where you could even practice Ying and you can use your Candela and then it'll show you whether or not a dummy is flashed or a target is flashed, and that you can then see, and it'll show you maybe even a timer counting down, so you can see how long have I got to react to this, to have that action. Those are just all good ideas. In terms of targets, aim, yes, I think a mixture of two things. I would want to practice my flicking, practice moving on to targets, acquiring the targets, and then also, to a lesser degree, but still be able to practice recoil control. It's something that I think is less of a challenge for me. You just get used to that, but different guns have different recoil and you need different amount of sort of counteraction to that. So recoil control for one, but yes, also flicking onto targets would be good, similar to what you get in the aim trainers, but advanced beyond that.
Yeah, just a simple wall with a grid would be nice for recoil control or for content creation. Imagine just a white wall with a blue grid or something like that to show recoil of a weapon. And yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, this would be good for beginners too. You know, how many people out there don't know what Maverick tricking is? How many people out there don't know that a Maverick can actually lower an entire reinforced wall? You know what I mean? That by doing the top and the bottom line. So imagine being able to have just a plain reinforced wall there and given the opportunity for a Maverick to do that and practice that. That would be good. The opportunity for a Maverick to practice taking out hatches. All that stuff wouldn't be hard to do. This gets a little bit more complex, but imagine if they had, like, I don't know, say 100 or 200 random Valkyrie Black Eye spawn locations, and then you could walk around with IQ's gadget and find them. You know what I mean? So you would learn how that gadget works, and
like an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And for the love of God, put static cameras in T-Hunt and allow me to play T-Hunt Classic with defenders before anything else is done. Do those two things.
Yes. I think we've said that many times. The defensive mode, it's just not great. It's like if you play it with 5 players, if you play it with a full team, it's far too easy. Everyone just holds one angle and you just mow them down as they come towards you. If you're playing it alone, even on the easiest mode, it's like juggling flaming bananas or something. It's just, you're just running backwards and forwards. It's not as fun. T-Hunt Classic, that's sort of the best practice mode. Allow me to just go in and with Mira and practice my Vector a little bit, because that thing is just all over the place. And yes, definitely seconded that as well.
Would a firing range be popular on console, do you think?
Oh yeah, that's where it would probably be even more beneficial. We have aim trainers on PC. It's not the same, but we have at least something there. Console, they've got,
because there's no aim assist.
Right.
Sounds good.
Know in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone else has any other suggestions, happy to hear those, and maybe we'll get to discussing those
are endless. They really are. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here. So yeah. And
I think the point I think we can make here as well is, if we do get something like this, it needs to be fit for purpose, because we don't want a Battlefield 5 scenario where time and resources get put into making something and then no one uses it because it's kind of not, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And I mean, this Battlefield target range, anyone who's played it, it was elaborate, and you could try out the anti-aircraft tanks, and you could try the normal tanks, and there was a target range for small arms and all kinds of different things. It was like it was a quite a significant map you could go around. There were several different planes you could try out. There's a bombing range for the planes, where fighters that spawned. It was very elaborate, and yet I almost put no time into it at all. I hardly ever used it, because it just, everything that it kind of gave you the option of doing wasn't what I would have wanted out of that mode. And that is something we definitely would want to avoid. It needs to, if there is something like this coming, and I think it just can't be a coincidence that we're getting a brand new background in the operator menu, and it's suddenly a target range. Like,
it's too big of a tease, man. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's not a coincidence. So if something's coming, hopefully it does have everything that players would need.
By the way, guys, new season, it's not coming tomorrow, right?
Today I saw someone adamantly just mentioning or commenting again and again and again on one of the official Rainbow Six tweets that it was the 17th, but he didn't give any source.
Store has it listed as the 17th.
Okay,
I want to say.
Yeah, there was no indication as to where that info came from.
How many weeks of test server have we had?
That's what I'm wondering right now. It looks like it's been 3 weeks.
It has been. Yeah, it should have been sort of. I was expecting it maybe tomorrow or the day after. So, which it may still be. They released
those patch notes today. That would almost lead me to believe that it might be coming tomorrow. But wouldn't you think they would have put something out today if it was coming tomorrow?
As in, I mean, the patch notes were out today.
As in, like, hey guys, maintenance tomorrow to deploy patch. Blah 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 blah. You know,
have they been doing that?
Servers will be down.
Have they been doing that in the last few seasons?
The day before are saying, I don't know. I don't remember
either.
Usually we know the day before, I feel like, right?
I don't even know. I feel like it's always been a surprise.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. That's sort of the feeling I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
I hope it is. I hope it's tomorrow.
Could be any time.
Yeah, I hope it's tomorrow. I hope it's not until the 17th. That's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've got... Doesn't Pro League restart on the 16th?
That's what I'm getting in my comments. Yeah.
16th. Yeah.
So Pro League starts on the 16th. That has to be on the new build. It has to be before then. We had patch notes drop today, which we haven't mentioned yet because it was kind of a reiteration of everything we already knew. There was a minor correction for the damage that is done by Jackal's PDW-9, which was initially listed in the original patch notes as 38 up close. It's now 34. But apart from that, it was pretty much exactly the patch notes. So we're not going to go into detail on that. We have discussed that in past episodes. But yeah, like, why is that coming out today? It has to mean something, right? Somebody in my chat
saying that pilot program skins are scheduled for tomorrow. So that would lead me to believe that's the new season. If everything's on time, then it should be for tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow or the day after? Is it the 11th or the 10th?
They're saying it's the 10th in my chat.
Okay.
But I would say it's coming to either the 10th or the 11th. That would be my best guess.
Yeah, I would assume so as well. But we shall see, I guess. We will find out within days, at the very latest. Next topic, and I suppose this is maybe a shorter topic. Like I mentioned, Flanked, I watched your video on the Closet Cheater, and that was really nicely done. I won't maybe give away the little twist in there, because that was quite good. But that's
everybody watching this has already watched the video, guaranteed.
Oh, you think so? So okay, fine. So the cool thing was, like, you had 4 clips of dying against a guy, and the first 3 ones, all of those clips were like, like, he's pre-firing you, but he's firing you badly, and it's like, woo, this guy knows where you are, but how does he know? Is he stream sniping? Is he getting call outs? Does he have a drone that you're not noticing? And it's just it seems really, really fishy. And then the fourth clip is he's just flying around the map as a defender. He's in the sky shooting everyone. It's like, oh, okay, so that was it. Which is just such a weird thing to do. Like, why was he hiding his cheat for the entire match, and you were like 3-0 down already, right? You were getting.
I think we won one round.
Okay, so
I won one round.
They were winning hands down. The enemy team was winning anyway, and then in the final round, he just decides, okay, I'm gonna jump up into the sky and shoot everyone.
Reveal. That was the full reveal. The teaser was over. Is he, isn't he? It became clear. One of my favorite things was the comments. People that clearly didn't make it to the reveal. Do you know what I mean? Like, number one could be explained like this, actually, and number two, all of that's kind of the point of the video. Like, that is actually what we haven't discussed this, but I feel like you're saying all of them individually. You could look at them and go, it's not enough. It's kind of suspicious, but there is an explanation, a possible explanation. And then at the end, the dude's just flying around the map. It's clear, we now know that he is a cheater, which obviously raises the question, how many times do you die to a cheater? But because they don't do the full reveal at the end, you just never know. And you're just like, you think, oh, well, he got the better of me.
Yeah. That's what I said in the video. I said the people who teleport around, that's not who I lose sleep over, and losing sleep is a rough. I don't really lose sleep over anything. Okay. I'm using that as a figure of speech, but I don't. Yeah. The teleporters, I know those people are going to be banned really quickly. The closet cheaters are the ones that stick with you because, you walk away and you're like, man, that just didn't feel right. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe I'm just bad at this game. You know what I mean? Maybe that dude's just really, really good. And sometimes I'm sure that's the case. Sometimes I'm sure that you're playing at somebody who's just got really good game sense and is better than you. But sometimes that person has wall hacks and is just being incognito. And those people will be banned too. I firmly believe that if somebody uses wall hacks in Rainbow Six Siege over a long enough period of time, they will be banned. I firmly believe that. It's just a matter of how quickly that's going to happen. And if they're incognito and people aren't reporting, then maybe that process takes a little bit longer. So, that was the whole point of the video is couple points of the video. One, whenever you're streaming a lot, which I've been trying to stream more, part of it is, you're sitting there and you're playing and you get frustrated and you throw out the accusation. And the Twitch chat will be very quick just to be like, oh, Flank, you're full of garbage. You're full of it. Yeah, the dude's not hacking. Blah blah blah. He's clearly not hacking. There's no way that you can say either one way or the other that a person is hacking or not. Okay. And then the second thing is that's something I have to take that advice as well, because for me, I've got to say, listen, there's no way I can know whether that person's hacking or not. So let it go, man. Just let it go and just move on. The thing is, accusations aren't a good look because we all know somebody we play with and it's a regular accusation, and it's just like, man, like, just chill it, will you? We're in gold. No one's hacking around here, mate. Not after the first sort of month of the season. But I will say I wasn't persuaded with regards to your video. It wasn't until that last one that it was so obvious, But I wasn't persuaded on any. Like, if you hadn't have done that reveal and you'd have just said, "Look, I'm sure this guy's a hacker," I'd have been like, "I'm not really." These are a little bit, but I wouldn't put my money on that. But obviously, when you do the reveal, it's just abundantly clear that is the case. And I think really that hits on the point that this could be happening more than you think, but obviously people just conceal it. You know what's crazy too? That guy had elites. That guy had a black ice weapon skin that he was using.
And he was like level 100 and something, right?
Yeah, he was 160 something, if I remember correctly. I looked up his stats, and his stats weren't outrageous. There was nothing that you could look at that said, this dude's a hacker. Well, I thought that gameplay was on the test server. No, that was on the live. I was actually playing with Bikini and Secretly. Yeah, I think there might have been a few other clips in there that were test server, right? Oh, yeah, just some gameplay clips. There was one gameplay clip at the beginning, I believe, and one at the end that were separate of the incident, just over me commentating. But I think at the end of the day, what I hope people will do is just be a little bit more, understanding whenever people who play this game a lot and are streaming it and are trying to play ranked a lot, when they throw out accusations, like, be a little bit more understanding of that. And then I've got to be better about not doing it as much. Those are the big things.
Yeah, once you start putting a lot of time into a game, you get a feeling for what is normal and what is not normal. And Rainbow Six is a very challenging game because there are things in the game that kind of can make it seem like someone who's very good is cheating. Like you can just die to someone just peeking you and shooting you instantly, and you just wonder, well, how does he know? Where did he know? And you might have had a drone on you, and you might not have known. You might have been spotted and called out. And that's how a very good player can feel as if they're cheating. But nevertheless, like the things with the clips that you were showing there was that his aim wasn't good. He was shooting all over the place, and he was pre-firing you just that little bit too early every time. And also, he wasn't actually then hitting you immediately, which is like that seemed just this sort of weird juxtaposition where he's like, okay, he's obviously got the knowledge to know where you are and to be able to shoot you before even rounding the corner, but he's shooting so early that he's actually giving away his position, which is not a good play, and he's not hitting you successfully. Like that, to me, it did seem suspicious. And then, of course, it was all revealed in the end. For me personally, it's not a huge problem. Like I play Rainbow Six for fun. I play it casually. Playing the game is not my job, and I don't ever really grind to that level where I run into this issue. I've maybe in the past sometimes when I was playing more regularly, but not so much recently. But I have heard, and this is tweeted publicly quite frequently by some of the pros who stream very regularly, who play very regularly in ranked. And they obviously, if anyone has enough experience to be able to spot suspicious behavior, then professionals with 10,000, 13,000, 16,000 hours in the game, they should be the ones who can see this. And they're the ones also who mention that, who see that kind of closet cheating behavior where someone is hiding their cheats quite well, but is just doing stuff that doesn't quite seem right. So I suppose, like Pete mentioned, I guess after the first month of the season, these sort of players that do that, they rise to the top anyway.
Champion ranks.
Yeah, most players won't get to see them. So I guess that's a good thing.
I think this is a good actual kind of prepper for the new season because of the MMR lock. I think boosting is going to be much less frequent. In order to boost somebody now by using hacks, you will have to be within 1,000 MMR. That's not impossible, but that's going to require a different account for each account that you're going to boost. Yeah. Correct? Either that or you reversing that account down every single time. It's going to be much more difficult to boost. It's going to be much more difficult for a player to go out there and pay a hacker, a blatant hacker, to boost them up to diamond. That's going to eliminate a large portion of hacking right there. But what might be more prevalent now is the closet hacker. The person who's solo queuing and uses hacks to try to get as high of a rank as possible. This might be. The days of seeing the teleporters might be over, or for the most part. So, maybe that's kind of a prepper for the new season. I hope not. I certainly hope not, but it could be.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, and if there's one thing to add maybe as a final note, is that there is quite a successful campaign to deal with cheaters. I saw a tweet recently, it's a while ago, a few weeks ago maybe, from someone who was complaining that every day they turn on Siege, they lose ELO, they lose MMR points because of cheating that has happened the day before. And it was kind of someone expressing frustration. I've forgotten who it was. It was someone complaining like, why does this have to be a thing? Why every time I turn on the game, does it take away MMR from me? And I was just thinking, that's not a bad thing. That means every day cheaters are getting caught and are getting permanently banned. That's not a bad thing.
I guess what's happening? Can you explain that, Rogue? Exactly what's happening there? Whenever I log on and I lost MMR, what are the possibilities for what happened there?
You either played with a cheater on your team, or you played with a cheater on the other team. That's it,
And
right?
What if he won that game
beat
against
them?
the cheater?
No, you don't
Right.
have to beat them.
That's the thing.
You would have to beat them in order to lose MMR.
No. The
So
MMR.
you beat them.
Hang on.
You beat. That's the issue, right? So you beat the hacker and you still lose. That gets reversed.
True, obviously.
Because that game just gets wiped out. It's not that
Even
game
though
has
you
never
struggled
existed.
against a hacker and you overcame them.
Yes, of course.
yes,
Yes, losing.
what
Yes, that
you're
is. Yes, of
seeing.
course, because it's the games get rolled back. So if you gained MMR during that match, so either with them on your team or you beat the cheaters, then you lose. Then it's a negative. If you won with a cheater on your team and you gained MMR, then you lose. If you lost against the cheater and you lost MMR, then it gets added back. Of course, right?
Right.
So there you go. Yes.
And think about this, okay? Every time that those people that are reaching out to you, the people that are every time that you are logging on and losing MMR, that is a sign that you played against a closet hacker because you didn't know it. You didn't know that. If you play against somebody who's teleporting, you probably first of all didn't win, and second of all, you would know that MMR adjustment's coming down the road. So every time this is happening, there was either a closet hacker on your team or on the other team, and you had no idea.
They could have been on your team, or they could have been on either team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you won. Whatever the case, you won. Yes, good point.
But just tell yourself they were on the other team and you overcame them.
And I understand the frustration, and this has been voiced frequently as well. I understand the frustration that people say, like, well, I beat someone who's cheating, and now I get punished for it. I lose my rank. I go down in rank. But I think initially the plan was to maybe have that not be the case. So if you win against a cheater, you get to keep your reward, and it just gets removed from the team that had the cheater on it. But then you have an inflation, right? Then you have a team that loses their gain, but or the other way around. You don't lose your gain, but the people who were queued together with a cheater and it wasn't their fault, they get their loss wiped out. So you have this kind of inflation, which can't be, because it would mess with the entire ranking system. So as nice as it would be to get rewarded for beating a cheater, it cannot be. It needs to be wiped out to keep that balance.
And it's honestly, looking at it as a punishment is you got to change your mindset. Okay, if you go to the store and if you buy something that costs $50, you hand them $100 bill, they hand you back $75, and then you come into the store the next time, they're like, "Hey, I gave you the wrong amount of change. Can I have that $25 back? I gave you $25 too much," and you give it back to them. Are you being punished, or are you just giving back what's rightfully theirs? It's like it never existed. That's the way you need to look at this. That match never existed. So yes, you are losing MMR currently, but theoretically, it's just wiping out a match that should have never existed.
The problem with that analogy is you're sat at home and you have that change in your pocket, and then a big scary bouncer knocks at your door, and then he takes that change off you. There's no
or another analogy would be like
sausage fingers takes out all your money.
Another analogy, Pete, would be like that you spent the money and you're now homeless and you're on the street, and then you wake up one day and you're like, "Hey, you owe me $25 because I gave you too much." That would be that's a poor analogy. Let's just forget I said that.
I'm starting to get confused.
I'm liking this analogy. Roger, you got any analogies?
I'm
game for a metaphor as well.
Oh my god, no, I don't.
Okay.
No, that was good. That was fine. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Initial thoughts. Flank, you played it a little bit. What did you think? How was it different from the one before?
Well, I think let me preface this by saying I did not play the original Ghost Recon Wildlands. Where I don't even know if I should use the word original there. I didn't play Ghost Recon Wildlands. Let me preface it by saying that. Once I learned the menus and the whole pinning concept of placing the missions on the pin, and once I learned that, I really enjoyed it. And it's a game I'm going to own, and I'm looking forward to play. It was harder than I thought. I wanted to try to stealth everything, and I had a really hard time doing that. And I come from like one of my favorite game series of all time is Metal Gear Solid. And one of my favorite things to do was to try to stealth 100% that game. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that you can do that in Ghost Recon, but it wasn't nearly as easy in my opinion. Like if you ran him on two guys in the woods, one would be looking like this way and the other one would be looking this way. So the ability to like come up behind one and take him out silently without being detected by the other one really is non-existent. You'd have to like throw a distractor and get them off to the side, which is cool. Like that's enjoyable, but that's really what stuck out to me. The weapons felt great. The weapon customization looks great. I think there's a lot of potential there. The environment, I really like. The world looks cool. I was playing it on PC. I really on PS4. I really want to play it on PS4, and I didn't get the chance to. And I think I might even be able to navigate the menus and stuff that I was struggling with better on a controller than on PC, which is weird to say that, but I kind of felt like that the whole time I was playing. I was like, I think I'd be better on a controller right now. But yeah, I was encouraged. I enjoyed playing it, and it's a game that I'm going to own.
Yeah, I can echo that last part. I'm convinced that the controls are set up for controller use. Like when you're modifying your gun, when you're modifying, whether you're taking a suppressor off or you're changing the fire rate or the fire rate setting, any of those modifications you have to aim down sight to do. That to me screams controller use. That someone is double mapping buttons and using aim down sight is the modifier that then allows you to double map the buttons. It's a bit of a shame that we have to put up with that on PC as well. Like one of the things that kind of really, it annoyed me that I just thought, I wish it wasn't this way, was that your binoculars, which are a very valuable tool when you're scouting out a location, your binoculars are an item that are in your inventory. So I have to go into my inventory, which is then a radial menu. I have to select the binoculars, which then deselects my hand grenades. So I don't have my hand grenades ready. Then I select the binoculars as an item, as a gadget. And if I want to heal or use any kind of boosters or stimulant, or use my grenades or flashbangs or anything, I have to use a menu again to go and get those. And I think actually that radial menu doesn't even have all of the items that you have with you. It has a selection that you have to populate, right? So there's healing items that go into that. There's all kinds of explosives like mines and hand grenades and flashbangs. I don't know if there were smoke grenades, maybe not, or not yet that I've seen. Maybe there are, I don't know. And it's just like, so then you have to go into a separate menu to populate the radial menu, which then you can use as you're gaming. It just all felt like I can understand if it's designed for controller use where you have a limitation on how many buttons you have, that's how you have to do it. But it's a shame to kind of be shackled to that as a PC player where I can just, I don't even know how many buttons on this keyboard. There's a lot of buttons on my keyboard. And I wish just binoculars especially just needs to be one button that I can just press any time. Like in Far Cry. I don't want to have to use it as an item. But it's just a relatively small gripe. All in all, I've played it a bit. It took some time over the weekend, but I was a bit busy, so I didn't have as much time to play to be fully sort of aware of all the mechanics. Like, I think when we first talked about this, when the game was announced, we were a little bit cautious about the environmental stuff and the survival mechanics, because if they can become tedious, right? And I think at the time we mentioned Red Dead as an example where you have to clean your guns, which is just tedious, and stroke your horse and all that nonsense.
Stroke your horse. And you know, your individual bullets, you can change them. No way. But you have to individually do every bullet, I believe. Like, from what I recall.
So you can take it too far is the point I'm making. And I mean, you start out this game and you're injured. You're instantly injured right at the beginning. And the first thing it tells you is, hey, heal yourself up. And you go through this 10-second animation. The person kneels down, starts putting bandages around her leg. She's bandaging her arm. Then she's bandaging something else. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, if that happens every time I get into a gunfight, I'm literally going to lose my mind. It didn't happen, actually. It wasn't that badly, or didn't do that badly. And for me, the stealth worked quite well. I just happened to pick sniper as my start-off specialization, the very first one. Picked up these massive sniper rifles that I find lying around, put a suppressor on that, and I'm just murdering all these guys from so far away they don't even know what hit them. Or a hand grenade. Like if there's a group of like 5-6 guys, you just get close enough and toss a hand grenade at them. So with the combat, I've had a decent time, and it's not been as bad as I could have expected it, given that first experience with the healing. Other than that, yeah, that survival stuff, it's still a bit of a concern for me. Like, you're constantly picking up stuff. Like, I'm sprinting through the jungle, and all of a sudden it says, "Hey, you've just picked up coconuts." And I'm like, okay, because I stepped on some plants.
I noticed that too.
I don't even see this stuff, and it's like, yeah, here's some coconuts. There you go. So there's a lot of different stuff, like plants that I've been picking up. You can shoot animals and get their meat, and then you can craft stuff from those individual things. And
they've gone in a really. I haven't played it, so that's a really different direction. So, so is this like a mission on the campaign, or?
It's just what you do.
I was playing was like the main story, yeah, and I was playing some side missions as well. This wasn't. I didn't play any co-op. I should have said that in the beginning. I didn't play any co-op yet.
Because there wasn't PvP, was there?
No, it's in the game. I think it's there.
There was an area you could go to in like the headquarters. Once I got to the headquarters, there was an area I saw. It was called Ghost War something, or Ghost War, yeah, PvP.
But not.
I didn't go to it.
It's there as an option. I didn't test it either. The Ghost War looks like a bit of an odd battle royale mixture. Like from what I've seen in promotional materials, there's a zone that circles in, and you'll get forced together. So
sounds familiar.
Maybe we'll talk about sort of what our anticipation is that for the multiplayer is in a little bit. Let me first sort of mention the last few points. Sort of the crafting system and oh my god, like if you stay awake for too long, your stamina bar becomes smaller. The maximum stamina you have just becomes smaller and smaller because you're getting fatigued, and you need to put up a bivouac. You need to build a little fireplace and a tent, and then you need to sit down at that, which takes you into a menu. And during that menu, you can do stuff. It creates different specializations, and you can sort of create sort of these temporary boosters where you can choose to have more stamina or gain more XP, and you can do these things. So it's cool that you have this option to sit down at a fireplace and do these little things in between fighting and prepare for whatever you want to do next. But at the same time, it felt tedious already. Like, I've seen someone mention that some of the perks that you unlock, and there is a vast unlock system. There is a vast progression system of all of these different things you can specialize in and perks you can unlock, that a lot of those kind of counteract the tediousness of the survival aspects. But yeah, sitting down in that fireplace menu, and every time I wanted to get out of the menu, I just hit escape, which then brings me into the pause menu. So then you have to find the right button to get out of that. It was already like, no, I want to play this game. I don't want to be forced to find a place where I can put up a tent, because it's limited locations. You can't just knock up a tent anywhere and then go through this thing. I hope it turns out all right. To be fair, I'm moaning about this stuff already. So far, I've not had any kind of sort of point where it's really annoying me and aggravating me. So far, all of this sort of survival stuff that is part of the game, it's been okay. It's been all right so far. It's not annoyed me yet, but I am still a little bit cautious about that and see where that goes.
Did you catch on to the whole pin system quickly and understand that? Okay, so I would get those, like, I would be in an area and I would find like a objective for a weapon located in this area. I could never figure out how to tell exactly where to go in order to complete that little side quest or mission or objective on the map. I never really got that connection down like I felt like I should.
Yeah, the pinning system, it took me a little while to get the hang of it as well. And the first time I tried to sort of add more pins, I ended up overwriting the first one, and that was a minor nightmare. I think one thing that I think you've kind of alluded to and that I want to expound on is that there's a lot of depth and complexity to the game that takes a little while to understand. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's crafting weapon parts or unlocking weapon parts that you then can go buy at a shop, and there's all of these different things to do. And the menus they're vast and they're not easy to comprehend. Like, even the character development is just one big map that is there from the beginning, and you can scroll around on it, and you can do all of these different things to specialize your character in various different directions and stuff. There's a lot there that you need to wrap your head around. And yes, the mission pinning system took me a little while. It took me a while to find where do I find the mission, the main mission, the side missions, these weapon search, weapon parts search mission, blueprint search missions. But yeah, once you get that done and you have these 3 missions that you can always keep pinned, that's it's a decent system, I think. It's a decent system of managing what you want to do, but it takes a while to get used to. In terms of finding stuff on the map, I think there's 2 options, right? You can, by default, there are no map markers if you select a mission. By default, what the game wants you to do is it will give you a bunch of hints as to where you need to go, and you need to then open the map, and it tells you which region of the island you need to go to, and then it will tell you which sub-region you need to go to, and then it will kind of give you a bit of a vague description. And part of the fun there is supposedly that you find out where to go and you navigate there on your own, as you would, right? Someone tells you where to go, and then you have to find out on a map where to go. You can turn that system off. So once you select missions, you get markers, you get map markers. So I guess that it gives you the option, right? If that's too tedious for someone who just wants to play and have fun, you turn it off and you just get map markers, like I think most games have done it up until now. Once you select a mission, it tells you exactly, go over here, this is where it is. You get a little floating orb that is visible in your game, and you just go towards that direction. Or if you want to play it the way it's intended, you can do this sort of thing where you're searching around on a map. For me, it's worked so far, that system. Like, I've always managed to find the sort of general area and then managed to find it quite quickly. Although I can see it's like becoming a frustration if you ever don't find what you're looking for. If you think, well, I'm here, where is it? What am I doing? So I guess you can always temporarily turn it on. That's an option. That's a workaround. But so far, I've not had problems with that mode.
Speaking of other games, and just cut me off if you wanted to keep going on about Breakpoint, but the Call of Duty Modern Warfare beta is going live this week/weekend. So that's exciting. I'm not sure if it's going to be on PC this weekend, but I know for a fact that if you pre-ordered, then the beta is live on PS4 on the 12th and probably actually on the 11th. They've been, over the last few betas, they've let them go like 24 hours early. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to get to play more of that game here soon.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I'm excited for you guys to play that. I really am.
Okay. I've not heard anything at all, so I'd have to keep my eyes open. I'd expect something like that to be announced on Twitter or something, and I would see it there, but I've not heard anything. Certainly not for PC.
If it's not on PC this weekend, it will be next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I can guarantee that, but I want to say it's there this weekend.
Yeah, excited to give that a go. Are you guys at all excited or interested in the Breakpoint multiplayer? Is that because, like, I saw the option within the game, like you mentioned, in this sort of little hub area, this camp. I saw the option for Ghost War there, and I just like, nah, I kind of just want to go and do this story quest.
I liked it in Wildlands. So if you recall, it wasn't with the launch of Wildlands, but when it did come out, I really did like it. I thought it was quite interesting, like how they did the 4v4. And, you know, like if a member of your team gets downed, you can get them up and stuff like that. And I like, you know, one thing I liked about Ghost Recon is if you're in like a ghillie suit, you can really blend in and you feel like you're in the jungle environment. I'm not sure, you know, if it's a particularly competitive shooter with the third person, you know, view and whatnot. And in fact, my friends that did get to play the beta said that they felt that the view was a bit skew. There's a few issues with the third person camera. Is that something you found?
Something that,
there was like some takedowns. Like I noticed like some of the takedowns that I did, there was desync between my player model and the player model that I was taking down. I would be doing the animation of the takedown and the actual person I was taking down, and that like cinematic would be like over here. As far as other third person issues, I didn't really see anything.
But generally, it was all right then, was it?
From what I noticed, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd play the PvP for sure. Mm-hmm.
It all felt a little bit zoomed in to me, and I went into the options and I increased the field of view. There's a field of view. It's not really a field of view slider, but there's like a field of view add-on, and then I set that to 100. I don't actually know if it made that much of a difference, but yeah, it all felt a little bit close to me initially, so I did change that. One thing that did bug me a little bit was that for me, certainly the sensitivity settings for the mouse in-game did nothing. This might just be a beta thing, but like I keep my mouse at 3200 DPI, so quite sensitive. And in the game, like I turned the sensitivity all the way down and just nothing changed, nothing happened. Whether I set it to 100 or 0, it was just exactly the same sensitivity. So I had to then manage the sensitivity of my mouse through Windows to then go in and play at a decent sensitivity, which I hope is a thing that was just part of the beta and getting fixed. Because that was
it's not long till launch, is there? This it's next month, right?
Yeah. It's in fact the 4th of October. I believe it's coming out on the 4th.
So yeah.
From everybody I talked to that played the alpha, they're saying that the beta ran so much better than the alpha. So hopefully that's a good sign that the full release will make a lot of improvements upon the beta.
To be fair, this build might even be a few months old, right? There's no guarantee. This might not be the latest build they have internally.
Sure.
Yeah. Some of the things I noticed as well as an improvement over Wildlands was vehicles. I think the driving of I remember Wildlands. The driving was so clunky and horrendous. And the flying helicopters was terrible. I've tried it a bit here. It felt fine. Like vehicles control fine, helicopters control fine. I've not tried a plane yet, but that's definitely improved. That's a good thing. One thing I did notice, and I think this is a design choice rather than anything with the game, is your character has momentum. So if you're sprinting and you stop, you let go of your sprint key, or you let go of the controller stick, the character will still take 2 or 3 steps, which makes sense when you're sprinting. But sometimes, like there's a small table with an intel item on it, and I'm trying to pick up this thing, and I want to take 1 step forward, and I just tap the W key, and this person sort of like walks 2 steps, and I'm too far, and I need to turn back, and like that felt the fine control of the character, especially like within buildings sometimes, or when trying to pick something up that was in a very specific angle that you can only reach if you're standing in front of this tiny little table. That felt a little bit odd. Like this momentum that the character has, even when you're moving slowly, is hard to control. And again, I think it's because the game is built for controller use, where you can just slightly move the control stick forward. On a PC, you have to press a key to switch between walking and jogging. So, which I only did if I wanted to sneak. I didn't really do that if I wanted to pick something up. And then if you're trying to sort of just tap a small amount of W to just go forward 1 step, it always ended up overdoing it. So maybe it's a better experience with the controller, and maybe I just need to get used to switching over to walking. But that was just one other thing that I noticed kind of odd sometimes. Other than that, yeah, I had a decent enough time with it.
I would agree. I'm looking forward to playing it more.
Good stuff. So, like I said, we had DreamHack over the weekend, and what a wild ride it was. So let's maybe take a look a little bit at some of the results from that. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen that yet. Let's look at how some of those matches went, pick out some of these standout matches to us, and some of the standout performances. So we had 4 groups. Each group had 3 invited teams, and then a bring your own PC or bring your own computer game, bring your own computer BYOC team. That quite frequently were actually, they weren't just random teams. There were Challenger League teams that made their way through there, and there were teams that are well known and good that used that opportunity to go through. But nevertheless, so let's have a quick look at Group A. We had Team Liquid BDS Esport, which is a European Challenger League team, which has Shaiiko, the infamous Shaiiko, as part of the team. And I think there's also like at least three former Pro League players, French Pro League players, or French and Swiss. There's Panic and Panix, Renshiro. Let's have a look here. There you go. Shaiiko, obviously well known after getting banned. Renshiro, Rafal, and Panix. And then also RXWD. Not sure how he wants that pronounced. So yeah, this is like, they may be a Challenge League team, they may not be all that well known, but it's a formidable team, and boy did they show that. But one of the things, like if we look at this first group stage for Group A, one of the things that is just so typical of DreamHack and how unpredictable it is, you look at the opening match, G2 beats BDS 2-0, then they lose against Liquid, they go into the losers bracket, they have their elimination match, and they go into the decider match, and then they get 2-0'd by BDS. Crazy.
Yeah. And it seems like Liquid has G2's number. I mean, obviously, BDS is who ends up knocking out G2. And that's the big storyline from this group. I think, G2 not making it out of groups at a tournament is pretty amazing. But Liquid, if you think about it, they beat G2 at the Atlantic City Finals. And I remember a couple DreamHacks ago, they played G2 really, really close as well. It was an offstage match, but I remember like people streaming it on cell phones. It went to map 3. It was really, really close. So, Liquid just seems to match up really well with G2.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of BDS's performance, they went through the group stage. It's really interesting. Like I was saying that earlier, just before we went live. What a shame for Shaiiko to basically have his name tarnished forever. Like, you say the word Shaiiko, the first thing everyone thinks is 4444 and banned for cheating for, what was it, 2 years? Was he banned for 2 years? 2 years he got banned. There was enough evidence for ESL to say, yeah, we're definitely going to ban you, and it's going to be a 2-year ban. So he has that will follow him around like an albatross tied around his neck forever, and yet he showed us this time around he is still a really, really good player. Oh my God.
Than showed us.
Wow.
Holy cow. Okay. I'm sorry. This blows my mind. Like, I'm so like struck by first of all, how good Shaiiko is. And you couldn't make this up. Think about this. If they came to me and they said, hey, Flanked, I want you to write a fictitious story as wild as you can possibly imagine about Rainbow Six Siege Pro League or pro level play, I wouldn't have the guts to say that Shaiiko gets banned for 2 years. And I'm not going to say that G2 was the reason he was banned, but they were very vocal about thinking that he was cheating. And then he gets banned, and then he comes back, and there's a DreamHack Montreal tournament as a BYOC team, makes it through BYOC, gets placed in the G2's group, and then knocks G2 out of groups. Like, that's insane to think about. And in doing so, plays lights out. He dropped 25 kills in one game against Luminosity, one map against Luminosity that they lost that map, by the way. He was by far the most dominant player of the entire tournament. And yeah, I mean, how is that for revenge? How is that for a story? I mean, it was so fascinating to watch. It really was.
And I think one of the key things about Rainbow Six at any level is how quickly rust sets in. If you take a break from Siege and you come back and you think you're just going to get straight back in where you left off, you're in for a rude awakening. I think you see that at all levels, whether you go on holiday and you're just someone who plays ranked regularly and you come back and you just, it takes a while to warm up again. And the same thing goes for pro level play, maybe even more so. And to see him, like, he was like being banned from ESL meant no competitive play at all. Like, all he could do was play ranked, and I suppose he could go and play custom 10-mans. There's nothing to stop him there, as long as it's not an official tournament, because there was this one sort of bit of a controversy where he was accused of trying to enter a Go4 under a false name, and it was detected, and he got an extension to the ban. I think it was another 2 years added on, but then he managed to prove that he actually sold his PC, someone else had bought his PC and then set up their own account on it, and then went to play a Go4. And yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. So, like, he wasn't even allowed to play Go4s. Nothing at all. And he comes back with 2 years of rust, and he was good. really good. And his fans have been saying that for ages. Like, they've been saying he's amazing. We want to see him back. And like I said, what a shame.
You do want to see people like that, though, don't you? You do, as a spectator, if they're clean and, you know, everything's above board, you want to see the best players who play Rainbow Six Siege in these tournaments, in the Pro League and in the Challenger League. You want to see these people. So how do you feel about the fact, obviously, just about him being back in the game? Do you believe, you know, like, obviously he served his time, there needs to be room for redemption, and now it's like a fresh start? Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, 2 years is a long time. And most people, okay, let's say he was cheating, okay, and he gets banned. And by the way, there's plenty of evidence to say, like, they didn't ban him just on somebody's word. They found in his MOS files that he was using a macro. So let's say he was cheating. Most people would have said, okay, I got caught, I'm out, peace, see you guys later. Let's say he wasn't cheating. Most people would have been like, screw you guys, I'm out. You know what I mean? He stuck with it, waited for 2 years. And in his first, like, he's in Challenger League, so this isn't his first showing, but this is his first LAN. This happens. Like, how crazy is that?
So why do I have a feeling that G2 were one of the teams that reported suspicions?
Because they were.
They were, right. So that is public knowledge. Okay, so
they were very, I'll say this, it's public knowledge. They were very vocal about them thinking that he was cheating. It was, at that time, he was playing for B Genius, and B Genius, I want to say that was back when they played best of threes, and it was like a crazy Pro League match against B Genius where Shaiiko just went off, and they, after the match, were like, dude's cheating. And then they looked at his MOS files, and I'm pretty sure he didn't play a match after that.
Yeah, there's opinions either way. I've seen people say that if you cheat, you should never be allowed to play again. You've lost your chance. And where do I come down? I think I agree with Flanked. He had his punishment. He's done his time. He's been out of the game. It is 2 years. Is it 2 years? Most games aren't even around anymore, right? If this was Call of Duty, that we'd be on the next game afterwards. We'd be 2 games down the line already. So like, the game wouldn't even be around anymore. So 2 years is it's a serious punishment. It's a serious deterrent to anyone to try to cheat and get caught. And yeah, I mean, obviously, all of the measures that caught him the first time around are still in place. So if he or anyone else decides to try and get away with anything, there's the same punishment is waiting for them. So yeah, to me, he's welcome back. Like I said, no matter who you say the name to, it will always just, the first thing you hear, the first thing you think of is, oh, that cheater guy. And that's something he's going to have to deal with. But yeah, if he's playing clean, then I think it's fair enough to have him play.
If he's playing clean, he's the best player in the world. I'll say it. I will say it from watching. I watched all of his matches over the weekend. Shaiiko is the best player in the world. He struggled against TSM. Well, I say struggled. He wasn't as electric against TSM, the team they eventually lost to and got knocked out by. But against everybody else, Shaiiko plays this game unlike anybody else. I'll say it. And it's fun to watch. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's back. I don't care what happened in the past. I'm glad he's back. And as long as he plays fair, I'm excited to see what he can pull off.
Yeah, maybe let's jump forward to there, because you mentioned they lost against TSM, and that was in the semi-finals. So they got out of groups. They played Dark Zero, a relatively competitive match, which they won 2-1 in the quarters. Then came up against TSM and got 2-0'd. But then went into the third place match and they 2-0'd Evil Geniuses. So all in all, they've only lost sort of that one match. Okay, the very first match they had against G2, they lost 2-0 as well. And G2 was relatively convincing on that. It was a 7-4, 7-4. That's pretty decent. That's pretty good. You can't say anything against that. But then after that, they just went on a tear until they hit TSM. And TSM, even the second match, it went into overtime. It was a 7-8. So they made that close. Definitely. I mean, just one thing that this whole tournament highlights again is how deep Rainbow Six Siege is becoming. How you can have these Challenger League teams like BDS, like Fours, like Team Secret, turning up to DreamHack, to international LAN events, and just running through everyone and just doing really, really well. That maybe is something, before we get to some of the other results, something worth discussing as well. Because what occurred to me is, like, okay, if we have so many really good teams now in Challenger League who can hold their own at a LAN event, what happens next season? Like, we only have 2 seasons a year now of Pro League because they're double length, and we only can get a maximum of 2 Challenger League teams that can ascend every season, at the end of every full season, which is now half a year long, 6 months long. Is that enough? Could we be running into a problem where we have so many good Challenger League teams that actually, if there was more space to have relegations of more teams, that we would actually see more of an exchange? Or is that just too unlikely of a problem?
That's one way, or you could just make the Pro League a little bit bigger. Expand the league a little bit, add a few more fixtures in. It would make, they would have to have a few more play days. So obviously that would be an issue, but that's perhaps a nicer way of doing it rather than relegating more teams. But I said to you in the past, I was in favour of the automatic relegation just through the health of the overall pyramid of the league system, and having teams move, having the opportunity to move up in place of like the bottom team in that Pro League grouping. I don't see personally an issue with automatic relegation of that. But they removed that, right? Like,
yes.
That's now a playoff. Yeah, I preferred it how it was.
I'll take the opposite position, and I think give them a chance to play for it, and may the better team win.
It's not like, it's not a major thing, but I think I just kind of preferred. At the end of the day, they can play for it and just, fingers. And, typically, Challenger League teams do quite well in these playoffs, right? So,
yeah.
They certainly did last time, yeah. But do you think
about EU right now? You've got Fours and BDS. Those are 2 Challenger League teams right now that have both proven themselves to be able to play with pretty much anybody in the world at LAN. So,
and I mean, Secret won a DreamHack.
Oh yeah, Secrets
as well. Yeah, exactly. Like, so yeah, and that's the thing.
Maybe
so
they have to send one of those to NA. All right, Secret. Guess what? You're coming to NA. If you want,
just take the team as they are and just put them in a team house in North America.
Yeah. They're still the most British team, I think, we have in the pro scene, even though they're in Challenger League, because they've got I can think of at least 2 members that are British.
They lost Lackey. He was a Brit, wasn't he?
Yeah, they've got Meepy and Leon. And then they've got a couple of French guys. I think the third one might be a Brit as well.
I'm not sure anymore. It is definitely more mixed.
Yeah. No, Rogue, one way of solving that problem is just to expand, like have a season where 2 teams, instead of change of 2 teams, maybe you have more teams go up and less teams go down, and then you could just have a slightly bigger Pro League.
There's options certainly to deal with that. The thing is, first of all, I mean, is it really a problem, or is this just something that came to my mind that isn't really that big of a deal? Like,
you think about, I mean, if everything stays as it is, either Secret, Fours, or BDS, one of those 3 teams is not going to even get a shot to play in Pro League.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
And they've all done really well recently.
Point about the extended leagues is an important one, because if you don't make it, you have 6 months. You have 6 months in Challenger League, not 3 months.
Yeah,
Shaiko's already waited 2 years. We can't do this to him, guys.
he's been playing 12 hours of T Hunt every day for 2 years.
It looks like it.
That's literally what it turns you into.
Right, let's maybe quickly then look through the final remaining stats here. I'm just going to jump to the quarterfinals. Okay, maybe look at the groups. So, Group B, Dark Zero and EG came through as you would expect, and Dark Zero there definitely the dominating team. Group C, we had TSM and the Sonics come through. FaZe Clan and Supernova, which I guess was a BYOC team, didn't make it. TSM already convincing in the group, and Sonics, they did lose against TSM, but then came back in the decider against FaZe. And in Group D,
it looks like that European roster change that they made is going to pay off. They look like a much improved team. That's all I wanted to say about Sonics.
Mm-hmm. And then Group D, Space Station, Rogue, and Reciprocity in there. Chaos, as well as the European team, they struggled. They did not do all that well, certainly at this DreamHack. They lost against Rec 2-0, and then they lost against Rogue in the elimination for them 2-0 as well, and that was them done and dusted. Reciprocity eventually lost against Rogue, so it was then Space Station and Rogue that went through. And in the quarterfinals, we had first Liquid and the Sonics. Liquid really did well throughout. Like they managed the quarterfinal, they won that, came up against EG, and they beat EG in the semis 2-0 as well to go into the finals. EG came through Space Station to get to that semi-final spot. And then on the bottom half of the bracket, we had TSM beating Rogue and then beating BDS, and Dark Zero falling to BDS at the quarterfinal stage. And then, of course, the finals. What a game that was. Backwards and forwards as well. TSM and Liquid, and TSM coming out on top.
Yeah, one thing you kind of skipped over there that I just want to mention real quick is Space Station versus EG featured Canadian playing his old team, which was a pretty cool moment. Obviously, EG got the better of him there. But first of all, Modiga, who EG picked up, played really well. To me, it just seems like it would be a longer process for Canadian as an IGL to step into Space Station and to get that to gel than just bringing on a new player onto a roster that's filling like an entry role. I could be wrong there. I've never played pro. I've never seen how that dynamic actually works. But just looking at it from the outside, it kind of makes sense to me that it would take longer for Space Station to adjust to Canadian than EG to adjust to Modiga. So, but it was cool to see that. That was just one of the many storylines from this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we look at TSM having only just taken on a new player and taken on Gotcha as a new coach and just going through and winning. That was great to see for them. And what a way to then sort of leave EG and go on to TSM and then just immediately win a LAN. That's really cool for them. And I think there's also a good story with TSM in general. Like the big story of the last season in Pro League was Bolo is playing. Bolo is now in Pro League, and it became a bit of a meme. Is when is Bolo playing? Like you'd watch a European match, a European Pro League play day, and the chat was just, when is Bolo playing? At what time? Where is Bolo? I think eventually it was more of a meme than actually people being serious. But initially it was fans being serious, even asking on LATAM play days. And then eventually it just became a bit of a joke. And huge for him to make it into Pro League. And he missed the first play day because he wasn't quite 18 yet. And then he turns 18 and bang, here he is. But I think the first half of the season, it's fair to say he kind of struggled. It needed to find his feet, needed to sort of get his bearings. And a lot of the time, he wasn't performing as well as his fans had been hoping for, and he was being put under a lot of pressure. Like, I don't need to explain to anyone the Twitch chat when a Pro League game is on. There's a lot of very opinionated people in there who like to have fun at others' expense, and he was getting roasted alive. But we look at this final match for DreamHack. And boy, did he wake up. Like,
wow.
Out of his performance there, his stats, he was the top player for the entire match. He had 44 kills, 22 deaths. That's a KD of 2.0 over 33 rounds, plus 22. And his rating was 1.56. Like, he dominated, and you could almost say he carried his team to victory. Merc also had a very good match. But okay, he had 23 deaths and 32 kills. That's very, very good, but nowhere near as good. And then Achieved, Pojo, and Jarvis, they struggled a bit, especially Pojoman and Jarvis. Their stats for that, I mean, they were more in support roles, so it makes perfect sense. But yeah, I mean, Bolo carried them through that to the win. Full stop.
You could make the argument that Bolo had the greatest single performance in any finals we've ever seen in Siege. I know that sounds like a huge statement, but he went plus 22 kill to death ratio. And then another stat, which I think is even more important, and it's more important than KD in my opinion, opening kills, opening deaths. He went 10-3. Okay. That means that in 10 rounds, he gave his team a one-man advantage to start the round. That's huge. Once you go up in man count, your odds of winning that round as a team skyrocket. Okay. So, I mean, it was an unbelievable performance from him. It really was. And I mean, as far as Pojo Man and Jarvis, I think they played their roles really well. I mean, Jarvis, I think, yeah, his stats don't jump out at you, but there's the first map they played on Coastline, the final round, he clutched it. The fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for Jarvis doing what he did in that final round, Liquid would be the champions because they would have won that round. It was it would have been round 15. So it was the final round of that map. Liquid would have won that round, and then Liquid went on to win the next map. So, I mean, yeah, Jarvis's stats don't jump out at you, but Jarvis saved that match for them by clutching that last round. He got a big kill on Mira by rotating through kitchen and then held the angle while Merc was planted the diffuser and covered him and got a kill there. So Jarvis came up big.
Yeah, that's worth maybe elaborating on as well. Like you mentioned this game, it was a nail-biting and fascinating game. The very first map, like you mentioned, Coastline, went down to overtime. It was 7-7. It was so close, and it could have been anyone's map. And in the end, TSM take it by that one round. They win 8-7. And then they go on to Bank, and Liquid just come alive, and they absolutely stomp them. 7-2. Almost no chance. And you think, wow, Liquid's finally here. And they go into the third map, which is Consulate, and then it just swung completely the other way, and it was TSM that 7-2'd Liquid. So you had this odd dynamic where the first map was incredibly close, and then you had just one team dominating each of the following maps. Really unique and interesting to see. That's not something you usually get to witness. All right,
overall,
then.
I'm one thing. If I can say one final thing about the tournament, and I mentioned this on Twitter, what this tournament had that I think we've been missing in Siege for the last 2 years is parity, and I really hope that parity is here to stay. Now, I realize Empire wasn't at this tournament, and Empire is the most dominant team in the scene right now. So maybe we still don't have parity in the scene as a whole and just had it at this tournament. But my goodness, this game is so much more exciting and fun to watch when every team has a chance to win it. It just is. And I really, the G2 Dynasty was fun, and I love those guys. And it was fun to watch in its own regard. But I honestly believe that the game will be better off if we do not have a team as dominant as G2, at least for the next few years. Let's have some time for some other teams, preferably NA teams, to get some wins.
I did note there was like 50% NA teams at this DreamHack.
Yeah.
Apparently, for Montreal, they're moving that up to 80% because they really do want an NA winner this time.
One of the things that was great to see was sort of the LATAM teams that did come. Team Liquid and FaZe Clan do quite well as well. FaZe Clan didn't make it out of the group, but they got their one win there as well. And then Team Liquid did really well and got all the way to the finals. So I think Liquid as a team, and also the LATAM region in general, over the last few seasons, they've struggled at LAN events, usually as a whole on average. And it's great to see sort of a bit of a comeback there, to also have more of a balance between the regions. So that it's not just Europe and North America that are always the ones that everyone's looking at, but just bring more depth into that sort of game as well. So great to see Latin America stepping up there a bit from that perspective.
So that's TSM securing their slot in Montreal, or yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay,
they are now guaranteed a spot at the Invitational, and G2 is not for the first time in ages.
Crazy. And G2's not going to make it to Japan.
Probably not. Almost certainly. Yeah.
So they're going to have to either win the Goga Pit or qualify. One of those two options.
They don't get an invite being the reigning champions.
Nope.
It's odd. That's really odd.
I think that would be wise for them to look into doing that in the future, but I understand not having it now because, I mean, let's be honest, there's a there's volatility associated with teams within Rainbow Six Siege because we're a growing and emerging esport. A team that wins, well, for example, the team that won DreamHack last year was Cloud9. Okay, that team is now an APAC. So, Cloud9 is some guys
reciprocity, is it not?
Well, that's the core of the roster, but that's what I mean. Doing that, it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game to give anybody an exemption a year away in an esport that's as volatile as Rainbow Six Siege right now.
That's a really good point, and that's, I think, something that is still confusing in Siege, because who gets to go? Is it G2 the org, or is it the players? Because what if there is a switch in between and none of the players are still there? Does the org just get to go, but it's no longer the team? Or do they switch? Does the team switch to a different org and then a different org gets to go? And what if there is mixing? What if they drop 2 players and gain 2 others, and then they drop 1 more and so switch around, and suddenly it's a mixture? Like there's still some players but not others, and the other team members have all gone all over the place. It gets too confusing. It like, how can you justify bringing someone a year, what are you even bringing? Are you bringing the people? Are you bringing the org a year on, when it could be anything? It could be absolutely anything. You could run into kind
of a nasty situation too of a team, an org buying a slot into the Invitational, and necessarily, you have a roster who has an exemption to the Invitational, and an org just comes in that has a lot of money and says, we want to be represented at the Invitational, so we're going to buy it. And that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing either.
How you say that it is a bit.
Yeah, it's
legal issues because there's a lot of money on the line. These big majors. It
just becomes really confusing. I think maybe one last point that I'd like to make was seeing Redeemer casting and commentating. Great job by him. He did really well, and yes, it's nice to see him getting into that sort of more diversified involvement in the sport.
We should try and have him on the podcast again next week. I'll reach out to him.
Mm-hmm. He was an awesome guest, by the way.
And he did a great job. The Bolo Ace, which was, in my opinion, might go down as like an iconic moment in Rainbow Six Siege. I know I'm like a prisoner of the moment, hyping all this up, but it was a really cool moment. He was a big part of that call, and he like nailed it, and he added to the excitement of it. So, I'll probably reach out to him and see if he wants to come on next week.
Good stuff. Shall we? I think, Frank, you probably might need to go.
Take off. Yeah, I got to take off. But are you guys going to carry on?
We might do a couple of questions, Pete, if you're up for it.
All right.
Yeah, do a couple of questions. Fair
enough. Enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. I'll see you guys next week.
See you then. Bye. Switch that over. Yeah, if you have any questions at all, do feel free to drop those in the chat. Otherwise, I'll go to some of the questions we still have left over. Pete, if you have anything.
Punisher had one earlier. Oh yes, right. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was about the hot breaching. So that seems to have been removed. So I'm asking you this because I don't know the answer. So is that intentional? Is it coming back?
Yes. So that was.
Rogue, are we changing the name of the podcast? Go.
Are we changing the podcast name? No, that's just even if hot breaching gets removed from Siege forever, this is the Hot Breach podcast. It stays that way. It's a cool name. Flank suggested that right early on in the sort of phase that we were thinking about this, and it's like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one we're going for. So that is definitely a thing. In terms of hot breaching in Rainbow Six Siege, that's been switched off on purpose. There was a tweet about that. It's so easy to miss these things if you're not on Twitter all day like I am. Sadly, it's just keep going back there, and then I get distracted and I wonder, why am I here? And then I end up browsing all the tweets. But I did see a tweet about that from the Rainbow Six account. I believe it might be linked. I want to say it's linked to a possible exploit, and they've switched it off for the time being because of that. Or it might be a bug. One of those. My feeling says exploit, and it's been switched off. Yeah, but it kind of flew under the radar, and it is a temporary thing.
There we are, Punisher.
Yes.
Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Vitenis. Ask Rogue 9 about the so-called shotgun buff. I've been hearing a lot about that.
So what is buffed? What are people saying? Damage or spread or something? Someone mentioned to me the spread has been tightened up. I can't say I've noticed it, but I haven't been looking out for it, to be fair. I suppose if we're expecting the new season to drop soon, I need to go in and check that.
Probably tonight, because it's possible.
It's not as if I have anything else to do. Jesus.
To be able to get the before and after. In fact, you probably want to go on the retail build.
Yes, you're right.
That.
Yes, I need to get
test
server. Exactly.
You want
That's
to go
a
on
good
the
point.
retail build.
Yeah, that's worth checking. Some people have mentioned that shotguns do more damage now. I can't say. That's so difficult to test. Again, I suppose
they always hurt.
Yeah, well, they always hurt when they're being used against me. They almost never do anything when I'm using the damn things. I hate shotguns so much. They're so unreliable. One thing that is, of course, changing, and that I have tested and confirmed, is that the breaching is getting buffed, essentially, so that before, at least one of your pellets had to hit a stud in order to take it out. So what could happen is that you shoot a wall, and you just get this giant breach and all of these impulses. Every pellet causes a large hole that should be vaultable, but then all the pellets, by chance, because they're random, they missed the studs in behind, or one of the studs, and then you get stuck. That is going away. So now every time that a pellet hits a piece of soft wall, the studs in behind it, there's like an area of effect that also deletes these wooden studs. So that is definitely a thing. Breaching is going to become much more reliable and easier with shotguns. But in terms of the combat effectiveness, I can't say I've noticed anything for myself, but then I hate the damn things, so I don't use them as much. I suppose, yeah, I could try to tonight find a little bit of something. Just prepare. Just to see, I suppose.
Just pick 4.
Certainly it's not been announced. And sure,
but
stuff,
these things do sneak in.
They can slip under the radar. But
Rogue, this is why we rely on you. This is what we need.
Can it be that the damage has changed and they didn't mention it? Like that's a big buff, and they especially for this patch, they specifically called out the new numbers. I'd be surprised if that just kind of happened, but maybe it is the spread tightening up a bit.
That's
I
what
don't
is
know.
in my comments. Yeah, a tightening of the spread.
Okay.
Yep. You got any cues?
Yeah, I had one here from Atomic Blitz 259. What do you think of an idea of Monty's shield being knocked away like Clash when hit by an explosive?
I like it. I would actually. I mean, well, they've already changed. Like you guys know, I don't like shield guys anyway. I don't like Montaigne. I don't like Blitz, and I think a lot of it comes from the fact that I'm not very good with them, and B, I'm not very good against them. They create a problem that makes it very difficult for me. So, and I fully understand that some people are excellent with Monty and Blitz, and it is a skill that they've like really practiced. So anything like that, I would kind of be in favor of, that just equals the playing field just a little bit, because I find the whole mechanic of the shield guys frustrating. That being said, it does seem as though with the last couple of tweaks that they are looking again at the shield operators in the game. I'm getting some comments. I always ban Monty. I always ban Blitz. Yeah,
the last time I played Blitz, I was playing a casual match, and one round I was on defense and just got totally wrecked by Blitz. I had no chance. I couldn't get away. When you pick him, I bet you struggle, don't you?
Yeah,
wait for the story. Yeah, you've preempted me. Like I was powerless against him. He flashed me. I was blind. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get away. I had no support, and it's just like this was unfair. I had no chance. Very next round, I pick Blitz. I come around a corner. I am inches away from this guy. I flash him, and then I'm dying to a melee. I come around a corner, I knew he was there, I droned him out. He was close enough to flash, I flash him, and then I'm dead. And then I see him somehow knife me in the front of the shield, and I die. And that's like, goddamn this character. I've never played him since. It's, my God.
Say someone's Caveira, and they have a really good round against me, then there's something subconscious where I pick Caveira, thinking I can emulate their pro plays.
It just doesn't work.
Rarely happens.
Oh my god! Same thing with shotguns. Like, you get absolutely wrecked in one shot by a shotgun, by someone quick picking you, and then you try it, and you're like 3 meters away, and the first shot doesn't even kill them. And it's like, what is going on? What is this thing?
You don't have the jammy gene, which makes you good at these things in gaming.
100% not. I have the opposite of whatever that is. Let's see.
Just looking through for questions.
Is an interesting one. Thinking Potato Gamer asks, do you think there needs to be more map reworks in favor of using glass as they intended? So maybe if we generalize that, should map reworks be taking into account the way operators work to somehow make them more useful in certain situations, give certain operators purpose?
We asked Jeremy about that on that episode, and he said no, I think was the answer, because there would just be so many considerations.
Exactly.
With maps and reworks and new operators coming, in 4 years' time to start considering individual operators like that. Yeah. Interesting idea, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it would be impossible, especially like if you have a certain operator that is supposed to be a long angle, almost defensive operator on attack, where you hold down the angle and then you wait, and you've got the smoke there maybe as well. But yeah, once you start trying to tweak maps to create certain situations, it's a rabbit hole that can go deep. And I don't even know if you could pull it off. You might try, and then it doesn't get discovered, or people use it the wrong way and stuff. No, I think if you start building maps around certain operators, or even parts of maps, it's I don't know if that's going to be a thing that makes the map overall better. I see risk in that. It could work, and it could work for that operator and not harm anyone else, but it could also not.
If the operator, you have to start from the basis of creating an operator that is viable, perhaps not all the time, but at least some of the time. So if really, I feel like the nub of that question is about whether, the creation of Glaz or the rework of Glaz to what he was, and then the nerf is suitable, like this change to him. And obviously at some point he was OP, because there are always strategies. You think about attacking kitchen on coastline, and you smoke and plant, and you use Glaz in that way. And there's a lot of instances like that. But I don't think that you can. I think it's backwards to do it the other way.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think it's something we will see, irrespective of whether it's plausible or not. I don't think it's going to happen.
Apparently, vape equals carcinogen. Possibly.
Who knows?
It's not as bad as cigarettes.
I mean, there's not enough research around it, is there? I mean, you're not sucking burning smoke into you, so there's less.
I spoke to my doctor about it
tar
recently.
And nonsense. Yeah, go on then.
I had an appointment about something else, and I said, I'm vaping. I packed up the cigarettes, and I said, what do you think about that? And I want you to be like brutally honest. And he said, look, we don't know what the long-term risks are, and we don't. And he said, but I would much rather you vape than smoke, because I said, it's not a permanent thing. I'm coming down on the nicotine. He said, yeah, I much prefer you vaping than smoking. So there we are. But no, but it's not, like vape. There is a chemical in that could potentially be quite bad for you, but it's not smoke. It doesn't have all the tar and the crap.
Nicotine nicotine is not great for you, is it? Right. So
yeah, I don't think in a large enough dose, nicotine will kill you.
It'll kill you.
Yeah, it will kill you. But I think I'm not sure that nicotine is particularly like Christ, guys. I am a doctor, right? I don't know if you can tell that or not.
Do not take any of this as advice.
Yeah, I don't think that nicotine is the issue in cigarettes. It's the smoke that you're inhaling. that's carcinogenic, not the nicotine, not that chemical. It's like, I have these. They have nicotine in them.
What are they, sweets or chewing gum or?
They're called lozenges, and they've got 2 milligrams of nicotine in, kids, so they're great. I will say, I was trying them, and then I had the worst heartburn I've ever had. And I don't know if it was them, but it was the only thing I'd changed in my diet. So, and when you wake up with heartburn, is there anything worse? Literally, like you needing to rush downstairs and have a pint of milk.
Yeah, it's not comfy, is it?
Yeah.
There you go. There's your free non-medical advice.
That is very non-medical advice.
Yeah, I had a follow-on comment. Siege is a very close quarters game, and yeah, it is. And that's maybe the problem with Glaz from the very get-go. Because if we remember back to Glaz, originally his big ability, the one thing that Glaz could do, was his sight could flip up and down. That was it. And it didn't have banana vision. It couldn't see through smoke. It was just magnification that you could turn on and off. And that was his big thing. And then you're going up against operators who can scan for gadgets and who have EMP grenades and all of these really unique and useful things. And then you have someone who has variable zoom, which just... No one used that the way. The idea, I guess, is, if you're still outside and you're taking long-range fights, you flip up this thing and you've got the zoom, and then when you get in close, you turn it down and you're on your iron sights or your red dots, and you can just fight better at closer ranges. And it's just not a thing in Siege.
It's a relic of what they thought the game would be, because obviously he was a pre-launch operator. And any first-person shooter game needs a sniper.
Does Rainbow Six need them?
No, not especially. Do you know what? I wouldn't want another sniper added to the attacking team.
Yeah.
If you imagine 2 of them being picked. Righty.
Imagine having a sniper that is even more like Glaz. It's still a DMR. It's still semi-auto. It's still kind of like in the vein of all of the other DMRs that we have. Imagine you have someone that's even slower fire rate and even more powerful. Like Bikini many times has publicly asked for a bolt action sniper. Would that work? Is that a thing? Yeah.
It would, but not as a separate operator. I would want it given to Glaz.
Right.
So, yeah, give it to Glaz. The main reason I don't want 2 sniping attackers is because I can just see I'll be playing and I'll have 2 people sat outside the building for the full 3 minutes sniping. And I don't want that. Yeah, and as you alluded to a moment ago, does Siege even need 1 sniper, let alone 2? But I would be okay with a bolt action if it was for Glaz, like in a rework type situation.
And is that going to
his rate of fire?
Is that going to be a one-hit kill? One-hit body hit kill?
Rogue, this depends on the armor rating, mate. Has he got rook armor?
Can you introduce a bolt action weapon that requires a cycle every time you shoot and have it be more than 2 shots?
I think it would give armor some relevance. Like if it downed a 1 and a 2 armor, but not a 2 armor with rook armor or something like that.
Right.
It would take a bolt action and a pistol shot or something.
I don't even know if that's a possibility with the damage, the way it works. If you have anything else, we can add that. Otherwise, we've pretty much reached the time.
We'll wrap it up there.
All right. So, yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us live. If you're watching this back later or listening to us on any device, yeah, something I keep wanting to mention this at the beginning of the podcast. This is, in fact, a podcast, and obviously, if you want to watch it live and interact with us, that's great. But if you're watching it back later, you may as well want to consider listening to this as a podcast. A lot of people watch it on their browser, on the second screen, or have it on YouTube. Just get the podcast. Just go into any podcasting app, search for Hot Breach Podcast. I went to quite some lengths to make sure that it's on all of those platforms. So yeah, listen to it as a podcast and enjoy. And yeah, if you already do that, thank you so much for listening in, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.